What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. I have what I think is going to be a rather exciting video for you today. But first, before we dive into that, please remember that none of this is financial advice. I'm not a financial advisor. This channel is only meant for educational purposes. Your wins are your wins and your losses are your losses. So, moving on to the content, following up the last video where we ended with me telling you that there is a $5,000 to $10,000 goal of an amount of capital that you want to build up in your bank account. I'm going to give you guys a breakdown for how that's going to be used, why you want to have that, and I'm going to give you what I personally believe is a life hack in getting your first asset. Now, I realize that many of you are probably not in that position right now. So even though you may not be there, even though you may still have to get out of debt first, please continue watching these videos because it's going to serve an important purpose for you guys to understand the entire process all the way through. Understanding the entire process and how the process is going to liberate you financially is going to be something that's going to give you additional motivation to make the sacrifices that you guys need to make in order to get that 5 to 10K in the bank and get your first asset. So the reason why your first asset is, I believe, going to be a life hack is because of my own personal story. It definitely was a life hack for me, and it absolutely can be for you. And what my story is when I got my first asset is I went from living in an apartment where I was paying out $900 a month for my rent, and I was all along the way educating myself, trying to figure out how to go about getting my first asset. And through those years of education and structuring everything, eventually once I got to the point where I had my 5 to 10K in the bank and I pulled the trigger, it radically changed my life in that instantaneous moment once I had that asset. And here's why. I went from paying $900 a month for having an apartment to having my first home. And what I did with that home is I lived in one of the bedrooms and I rented the 3 other bedrooms out at a price of $450 a month per room. So essentially, if you think about it, I was bringing in $1,350 a month that I never had before. So I went from paying $800 a month to having that $800 in my pocket and also having an additional $550 a month on top of it. I changed my entire world to where I was living for free. And that is a massive change. It is really a life hack, because if you can only have $5,000 to $10,000 to create that situation for yourself, it's going to massively fuel what you guys can do to keep that ball rolling and continue buying assets. Now, my mortgage on my home is $950 a month. So obviously I still have to pay money for living, but essentially I'm not the one paying that anymore. I tilted the scales in that moment where I allowed other people to pay for that debt, which is obviously one of the principles that I told you in the first video of Rich Dad Poor Dad. If you're going to take on debt, you want to make it good debt and allow other people to pay for it. So that is essentially what I would suggest, and there's alternative routes to that too. You don't have to have people living in all of the extra bedrooms. Let's say you want to minimally sacrifice in this regard. Well, you can absolutely go out, you can get a home, and you can find a home where it has a finished basement, and the finished basement has a fully equipped kitchen, and it has everything for your living essentials. And you could live in either the basement or you could live in the top portion, and you could absolutely rent the other section out to do that same thing and to cover your mortgage. And you're still going to hit that same goal of turbocharging your investment process. So this also leads us into why in the last video we went over Credit Karma and your credit score being something that you wanted to maximize Your credit score really is what enables this life hack for you. In order to be able to get a loan and to be able to get good desirable rates on a loan, you have to first maximize your credit score, so that way institutions and banks, people with capital will see that you are a responsible handler of capital, and they're going to entrust you with their money. It's not a super far out concept, but ultimately that's why your credit score is vital, guys. Without a good credit score, these doors are closed. So that's why in the last video we went over that so heavily on the education through Credit Karma to build up your credit score as fast as possible. And while you're doing that, you can simultaneously also build up that 5 to 10K in your bank account. That's going to take you time. But realizing now that credit score is going to enable your life, it's going to open a door which you can get your first asset through that open door. And not only that, you can start to acquire multiple more assets. If you benefit from a life hack like this and you supercharge your investment process by not having to pay rent for where you live anymore. This takes us to a concept for a term in finance, which is known as leverage. And leverage is something that you're going to want to utilize moving forward. If you guys are walking this alternate path, leverage is the biggest reason for why we can get there and why we can do it. And ultimately what leverage is as a concept, leverage is the ability to be able to get an asset without having to have the full amount of money for the purchase price of that asset. And it's called leverage because essentially you're having a minimal amount of actual stake that you have to raise yourself in showing that you are a responsible manager of capital and funds. Then a bank is willing to give you money that you don't own, so then you can buy the asset. So as a concept, leverage is very, very important to understand, and it's important to utilize because if you are going to play this game to the best of your ability, you don't want to own all of your assets outright. You don't, because that would greatly hamper you and it would greatly slow down the process. I mean, you can imagine if you're going to buy a $150,000 home, how much longer it would take to get that 150K as opposed to 5 or 10. Well, once you get that 5 or 10 and you get that asset, that principle is not going to change. There are ways to manage leverage so that way you can do it in a responsible way, and I'm absolutely going to teach you guys those concepts in the next video. But for now, it's simply important to understand that by utilizing leverage, by not having to wait to get all the capital in order to pick up any new assets, you're going to greatly decrease the time that it takes to do so, and you're going to build out an income stream in a very fast way. So in addition, from the life hack of being able to increase your income stream, the second you buy that first asset and the second you start renting it out to other people and you start letting them pay for your mortgage and you're living for free, there's an obvious benefit to that when it comes to the financial capital that you're going to have at your disposal. But there's additional kind of hidden benefits which are also very exciting, which people a lot of times I think don't realize until they're actually already in that spot where they have that asset and they're going down the path of learning how the game is played. And I'm going to tell you guys what those additional benefits are right now, because it empowers the life hack even more to have additional hidden benefits. And what you're going to be doing, guys, once you get that first asset, once you're renting it out and you're covering your mortgage with other people's money and you have additional capital at your disposal, not only are you going to be able to save up money faster to get another asset, the government is going to start rewarding you for going down an alternate path, because the world that we live in, at least in America, is very much one that is constructed to reward people who are supplying opportunities in the economy. And that's exactly what you're going to be doing. You're going to be running a business where you now own an asset, and you're going to be allowing people to live at a reduced rate than, say, if they were to go out and they were to buy their own home. So you're going to be a provider in the economy. And you're going to start playing by the same rules that the rich play by. And there are definitely different rules. And when you play by the rules of the rich, you start to get out of taxation. And that is a huge perk once you get your first asset. 2 years ago, guys, I bought a brand new lawnmower. It cost me $450, and that lawnmower did not cost me anything in taxes. I simply wrote it off because as a business owner and as a real estate owner, I have an obligation to manage those pieces of real estate. You know, the grass has to be mowed. So that brand new lawnmower all of a sudden became a business expense where it was not simply something that was only for me. You know, if I had my own home and no one lived with me, I go out, I buy a lawnmower, I got to pay the tax. I can't write that off. But when you guys have an asset, when it's a business, it is a business obligation. It becomes a business expense. It's a tax write-off. And that's how you play by the rules of the rich. A lot of people complain and they say it's not fair that the rich get out of taxes, and I agree with you in general, but I think it's much harder to try and change those rules. Quite frankly, I don't think that is a very viable route to go down. I think the better strategy is to stop playing by the rules of an everyday working person and start playing by the rules of the rich. It's available to all of us, guys. If you're willing to make the sacrifices, you can absolutely put yourself in a position where you no longer have to pay taxes. This mural that's right behind me, it was tax-free. It was completely tax-free. Why? Because this home is a business. I was able to write it off against the profits of the home. I'm going to be going on a vacation next year where that is even going to be a tax write-off as a business expense. That I know might sound crazy, but the rules really do go that far, guys. In the subsequent video to this, actually 2 videos in the future, I'm going to break those rules down a little bit further. So you're going to see more of the benefits. But for now, I just want you to understand that if you guys do get your first asset, not only do you have additional capital in your pocket, but you're also going to be able to start spending in a lot of categories where if you were just working a job and you didn't have an asset, you know, you'd have to pay taxes on those things. So that is hidden benefit number 1. Hidden benefit number 2, and this is a really big one that I actually referenced in the end of the last video when I told you guys that you're not going to have to use the $5,000 to $10,000 that you actually build up in the bank account. I told you you'd have to have it there in order to qualify for the loan to get your first asset, but you're absolutely not going to have to use it. When I got my first home and I began that life hack for myself, I actually only had to pay $350 for an inspection, a home inspection. That's the one thing that you're not going to be able to get out of paying. And that's honestly, it's one thing that you don't want to get out of paying either, because the home inspection is the most important part of that process when it comes to the risk management of obtaining that asset. So once again, that's another concept that we're going to dive into in one of the following videos, but that's absolutely a hidden benefit, that just because you had to save up this 5 to 10K, that doesn't mean that you guys are going to have to actually use it. Like I said, the reality of my past story is when I got my first asset, it cost me $350, guys. It cost me $350 to ultimately stop paying $900 a month for the apartment I was living in And to be able to make money instantaneously, to live for free and to have additional money flowing into my pocket, it cost me $350, guys. So as far as a benefit is concerned, that's an absolutely massive benefit. I think about all the sacrifices that I made and the amount of time that it took me to put myself in that position. Like, that's absolutely worth it. What better deal are you going to get in today's economy than that? $350 spends so fast today with the current rate of inflation. It really is a life hack to think that you can pay $350 and have that kind of a financial change ongoing in your life. If it's not a life hack, I don't know what else to call it. So that's the second hidden benefit. The third hidden benefit is once you have that asset and you now have tenants that are paying for your mortgage, you're going to be building up equity. In my apartment, when I was paying $900 a month, when I moved out, I had absolutely nothing to show for that, guys. Every single month I made that $900 a month payment, all of that money was gone. I never get anything back of it. And when you have an asset, when you have your home, and other people are paying for that mortgage, every single month you're going to be building up equity in that home. And this is a massive hidden benefit. The hidden benefit of building up the equity in that home is down the road. Once so much time has gone by, once you've built up enough equity, you can gain access to that capital in multiple different ways. You can gain it through a refinance on the property. You can gain access to it through something called a home equity line of credit. But importantly, you can get access to that capital that is literally just sitting in the price of your home. And once you do that, you can then cause the snowball effect to happen even faster. If you get access to the capital and the equity that's built up in your mortgage, you can take that out and you can go buy another asset. Once you do that, you're still going to be building equity in that first home, guys. That's going to be a process that you can rinse and repeat. But not only do you have that one asset that you're doing that now on, you have a second asset, which now you're building equity in. And when you get that second asset, it should also raise your income stream. So there's multiple angles of attack for why walking down this path is going to be a much better game to play in life financially than if you were not going down this path. In my eyes, the sacrifices are absolutely worth it, guys. There's really no question of that in my mind. So I really hope that's the same for you all too, because ultimately that's the only thing standing in your way. It's yourself. It's whether you're willing to make those sacrifices or not. And the common response that I get when I tell people about this life hack and they don't have maybe a deeper understanding of all the benefits that come along with it is I very commonly hear people say the same thing, and they say, well, I'm not willing to, I don't want to live with other people. I value my privacy, and I wish I could help them understand just what that kind of thinking is costing them, because ultimately what we're talking about here is making that sacrifice is not something that you're committed to for the rest of your life. It's a starting point, guys. If you are willing to sacrifice a little bit of your privacy and to live with other people for a short time frame for a couple years, what you're going to do is you're going to empower yourself in a way to be able to get multiple other assets, and you're going to open a door which is very realistically probably going to be forever closed if you're not willing to make that sacrifice. So what we're talking here is the difference in that willingness to live with some other people and sacrifice a little bit of your privacy is working until you're 65 at a job versus retiring way earlier and living whatever kind of life it is that you want to live. Personally, I think that's a very small sacrifice to make. And for those of you that don't feel that same way, honestly, without that sacrifice, you know, without the willingness to sacrifice in general, there is no gain. You know, you're going to stay in the same position that you're in right now financially. Yeah, sure, there will be small changes along the way, but if you continually think that getting a raise at your job is going to change your financial environment, you know, it might a little bit over time, but ultimately it's going to remain very close to how it is now. It's not nearly going to do anything to the same magnitude if you are willing to make some more of these sacrifices. And I'm going to tell you guys right now, if that's something that you are just completely turned off to, if that's asking too much of you, like I said earlier, I get it if you don't want to live with other people in a shared environment. You know, you can absolutely go out and you can buy a home where you have it sectioned in 2 sections, where you keep your tenants and your livelihood completely separate. If even that is too much to ask of you guys, if you're not willing to do that, then I'm just going to tell you clearly, I don't think my channel's right for you guys. I don't think that you're going to be able to go through the hard work and all the sacrifices that it takes in order to elevate your life in this kind of way. And if not, that's okay. You know, feel free to, you know, not need to watch any more of these videos. That's your right as a human being that's spending time on this earth. You know, it's your life, guys. You know, you can have whatever you want, but if you are willing to make those sacrifices, then I definitely think that this is going to be the right path for you. And continuing to watch the videos on this channel is going to help you transition through that process. So I hope you guys are in for it. And you know what, if you're kind of teetering on the edge, where maybe you feel like you see some of the benefits, but you're struggling emotionally with that idea of making that sacrifice, feel free to reach out to me. You know, I'd love to have a conversation, and if we can get you to that point where hopefully you can realize that it is worth the sacrifice to put yourself in that position. If there's any kind of input that I can give you to help open that door for you, then I'm absolutely all on board, guys. So feel free to reach out if that's the case. That's the summary of what the life hack is for getting your guys' first asset. In the next upcoming videos, we're going to dive into that a little bit further. And in the very next video, I'm going to tell you guys how to structure the loan on that mortgage, to manage risk, and only pay that $350 for the inspection. I'm going to give you guys the entire breakdown of what that process looks like to keep as much of your capital in your pocket and shorten the time frame that it's going to take you to get your next asset. That's the next video. The video after that, we are going to explore playing the game the same way by the rules of the rich. And that is a very exciting video in my opinion, because once you start getting the benefits of having the government on your side, the reason why the rules are written that way are because the government wants to incentivize producers in an economy. They want to stimulate economies and have an ever-growing number of opportunities for the citizens. So it is in the government's interest to create incentives to encourage as many people as possible to be providers of opportunities in the economy. And that's really why there are 2 sets of rules when it comes to the tax game and how you can play it. Whether you're playing the tax game as being an everyday working class citizen, or if you play the tax game by being an asset owner and a business owner. And I'm going to give you guys an entire breakdown of what that tax game looks like as a business owner versus if you're just continually working a job and you don't ever start going down this path. And that should be really exciting too. You know, when I tell you guys I'm going on a trip next year that's going to be a complete tax write-off, I'll dive into that. I'll explain how that is. And it's not just something that I can do, it's something that you can do too. It's something that you can have for your own life. So I look forward to giving you guys that information in that next video. So if you guys feel like this information has been beneficial to you, please take a second to like and subscribe. I know you guys have heard me say it before, it really does help me out in a massive way. So if you can just hit that like button, it only takes you a second, and I greatly appreciate it. Thank you guys for being here. I hope after this video you are even more charged, even more excited to continue on in this path. And if you are, I look forward to seeing you all in the next video. That's all for now. Take care, guys.